Alright girls, we have our first game in the best of 3 between Dimaga, starting in game number 1 here on Habitation Station to the top left in yellow, and Yoda starting to the top right. Yoda just won with a 2-0 versus No Guard in another turn versus Zerg, and that was actually pretty impressive by him. Played really strong there, even though I have to say that No Guard was a bit... Well, he didn't use the normal strategies. He was like trying to go for very aggressive styles, especially in game number 2. Game number 1 also relying on a Roach and Hydra composition that Yoda was able to shut down with siege tanks. But now we have a pretty different ball game on our hands with Dimaga playing his first game here. He had a free win in the first round, and now in the second round he has to face the Korean player, so it's going to be pretty tricky. It's the WCS Europe Qualifier, and for everybody who's wondering why a Korean player is currently participating in here, it's the wildcard qualifier, the ladder qualifier. And that means that the players that have 200 wins in the ladder in the season can participate in the qualifier regardless of where they are from. So Yoda currently playing from Korea has definitely a bit of lag and a bit of a delay that can come into play later on. Dimaga was already joking, was like saying I wished him like good luck and have fun for the match, and he's like, yeah, I definitely need the good luck here. And I think he sells himself short a little bit, but so far he really didn't have a lot of luck in the other qualifiers, and it's a pretty tough bracket that he's currently in. So it's not going to be easy to best Yoga here. Yoda. Yeah, Yoda might do some yoga, but his nickname is still Yoda, not Yoga. So we have the refinery here for gas, and Dimaga already with a quick overlord moving in and gonna double check that. He himself starts with the hatch first. Exactly the build that you would expect, with a very interesting placing for the spawning pool here between the two Vespene geysers. Haven't seen that in quite some time. But yeah, so Overlord is just gonna move in and confirms that there is gas, so he's already expecting Reapers here. That's kind of the go-to build for Terran, and especially if you're playing the style that Yoda plays, this is kind of what you would expect in this situation. So we're gonna look what exactly is gonna happen here for Yoda. Most likely just gonna start with his own expansion once again, maybe on the low ground again. Actually, that's probably what's gonna happen here. It looks very much like the CC is gonna be dropped in a second, and there it is. Yep, here we go. Spotted already by the Overlord, so Dimaga is absolutely in the know what's going on here. Reactor being started after that. Yoda going for exactly the same build that he used against No Guard. There's also no reason for him to really change things up, but I expect that from Dimaga we will see a little bit of a different style. Maybe a queen build with 4 queens and then a delayed gas, but I highly doubt that Dimaga will build 6 queens in total and really try to rely this heavily on them for the early defense against Reapers and potential Hellions. So far, the only thing that's happening is the Reaper trying to piss off Dimaga a little bit and maybe even sneak in to get a drone kill. And that drone is in a very unfortunate spot, but with an Extractor it should be able to save itself. Yep, there we go. So Extractor already built, immediately cancelled. The usual early game start. And we indeed have 4 queens at the beginning. So we have the queen in number 3 and number 4 already queued up. In the main base for Yoda we have second gas already taken. We will see him with not only the factory but then also straight the starport. And we saw him already in the games before with a very early third command center that we might see here as soon as he gets rid of that Overlord. The Marines are actually getting really close to killing the Overlord, and if they are hovering over there they might get the final shots in. That's what they're trying to, and Dimaga realizes that this is a little bit too close for comfort and immediately moves back, but in the end it's all good. But yeah, it could very well be that we are seeing the third CC started for Yoda right away. But it looks like this time he wants to put the preference on his tech because of the priority here, since he has the starport already lined up, and with this double gas that we have and also the tech lab being started, we could very well see him go into a bit of a Banshee harass here. And it very much looks like this is what's going to happen. So Yoda changing things up a little bit compared to the games that he played against No Guard. And that is going to help him. Whereas Dimaga, on the other hand, a player that in the past was always relying on his own personal style, especially in it showed in the matchup against Protoss, where he was one of the few that was relying on Banelings instead of Roaches, is now going into a Roach Warren build. And I'm not expecting a Roach push from Dimaga because, first of all, I do not think that he assumes he can take down Yoda with such a strategy. I think he will have to play it out in the late game, and that's also where the delay is going to come more into play. So you have to not only play your opponent's race, but also his location a little bit, and if you want to succeed in the qualifier. We have probably just a few roaches to deal as a task force against his opponent's Hellions. And there's already the third base. That's the base that you want to save. Taking the gold minerals here is really important. But what we have for Yoda is now the first Banshee. And Banshee and Cloak works quite well on Habitation Station. First of all, you can put even more pressure on that gold base. You really want to deny the gold base to the Zerg player. And it's much easier to do that with air units than with anything else. So the Banshees here could already do a whole lot. And what he really would like to do is, of course, take down a few queens. That would be absolutely amazing for him. And that's where then also the Hellions come into play. Banshee has been spotted by the base already, by the building hatch. But, well, here we go in the main base, and the first shot's going off immediately. So a couple of drone kills coming in, 2 so far. Latex started. But the Banshee, okay, cloaks and immediately moves back. And that was a last second cloak there. But 6 kills already. And even getting more than that, a 7th kill and even an 8th coming in, and it moves back just in time to avoid being taken out. Really nice moves here. We have a good creep spot, by the way, to the bottom, especially by Dimaga, and he is trying to move in maybe with a few roaches, but yeah, with a defense like this, it's very difficult for Dimaga to break through there. And the Banshee is still trying to do some damage, this time at the 3rd base, and it could actually potentially really damage that a lot, because we do not have any kind of detection yet in terms of WCS. Very nice that snipe though. The Banshee runs out of energy, gets uncloaked, and the 2 queens are just in range to take it out. But the second Banshee is doing a number, and that Spore Crawler is a little bit late to the party. Arrives in time to save that base, but it's already very low, down to 1/3 of its hit points, which is always very unfortunate, but he still has that gold mineral base now, and that will give him a quick boost in the income. Whereas Yoda is now going straight into a mech build, completely avoiding the bio that he used against Nogard in the first best of 3 of the day, but instead focusing a lot more on mech units. And first of all, we have now Hellbats in the picture, and we also have a Spire for Dimaga. So Dimaga going into the more traditional composition of Ling Muta Baneling, not relying on Roach Hydra in this game. And that will be a pretty interesting match, because we are going to see how heavily Yoda commits to anti-air units. If Yoda doesn't really get a few Thors into the game, then Dimaga might be able, with a good Roach Mutalisks. That's what I was looking for. With a good Mutalisk composition and a high Mutalisk count, to really counter everything that Yoda has on the map. 1, 2, 3 Thors are not going to be enough, depending on how heavily Dimaga really commits to this. The one thing that would be great for Dimaga as well is if he would prioritize the armor upgrade over attack upgrades, if he really wants to fight this. Just because a Thor has 4 attacks with when he takes 1 shot, and if you have an armor upgrade, it comes into consideration 4 times. So it really helps. It's absolutely super strong against Thors, and that's something that should definitely consider here. But we have also an infestation pit being built immediately, and I think this is also because he just now found out what his opponent is going to use here. The Mutalisks are going to distract Yoda for a little bit and supposed to keep him in his base for a bit longer. And at the same time, the infestation pit can be used to either get the Swarm Host into the game, which I doubt he will do just because he's still focusing on the melee upgrades for his army, but maybe he really tries to go straight into a Hive Tech to not only get then Vipers into the picture, but probably also for the Ultralisk Cavern, which I don't really like all that much. I personally think that Ultralisks are a really mediocre unit against a very heavy tank and Thor heavy mech army, so you need to be very careful with that. I would rather see him go maybe into Swarm Host or into just a Viper play combined with a good ground force. A combination of both is absolutely great, but we have seen heavy commitments into Ultralisks, and I think that this is just way too risky and a bit more too much of a one-trick pony. It can work, but you need great surface area, and if you have too many Ultralisks, they just stand in each other's way and don't really do any damage. Clustering up against Thor is not a great idea, and that's something that those Mutalisks just experienced firsthand, so need to be careful there. We have by now 4 bases, even a 5th base taken by Dimaga, whereas Yoda is on 3 bases, but keep that gold base in mind. That income should actually be pretty good for Dimaga here. As you can see, he has a huge advantage currently in minerals, and is getting a lot of Zerglings right now, because he doesn't want to spend his gas. He wants to bank that up so that he can use his additional attack once that he is on on a hive. But he knows about the composition, so he knows what he's facing. And the Banelings are gonna help here. Banelings are actually pretty good if you get them into a clustered up mech army, especially against Thors, for example. If you take Banelings into the Thors, you're not gonna kill all of them, but you damage them enough that the rest of your army can just swoop in and clean up and do the job. So the problem is really the connection. You need to make sure that there are no siege tanks that simply get the shots off against the Banelings. So it's a little bit of gas spent, but still a massive bank. And Dimaga always actually going into both, into Greater Spire and into the Ultralisk Cavern, and that I like a lot more. That's gonna be a very difficult composition to beat. It's just a matter of time, because you need to get that out. And this is not gonna be easy for him, just because Yoda is already about to be maxed out, and once the Terran player hits his 200 supply, he's very likely to move out on the map and try to do his damage. So it's gonna be a little bit tricky for Dimaga to really get his composition into play. He might have to sack a base if Yoda really decides to go for it. But right now we have even more drones being built for Dimaga, and I actually think that this is a bit of a misstep. But he's actually gonna probably build more spines and spores. Because if he really tries to rely on an economy that is based around 95 harvesters, while he has already a big bank, then he's limiting his potential supply in armies significantly. And I really don't think that's what he should do here. We have a few Thors being built, but you can already see that army supply is heavily in Yoda's favor. Dimaga needs to get rid of those drones. He has way too many. 95, that is way too much. And I'm not quite sure if he realizes that. This army is absolutely massive. Huge spike here for a second, maybe caused by all that stuff that's happening on the screen now. A bit of a lag spikes earlier, but yeah. This is a massive composition. I don't think that Dimaga is droning even more. He cannot afford to drone. Yoda is doing him a favor, taking these drones out, and this is what I was talking about earlier. The Ultralists are just standing in each other's way, blocking each other. Dimaga is now moving in the Banelings with really good connects, taking out huge chunks of Yoda's army. And now the Mutalists are moving in together with those Corruptors, taking down the Banshees that we have. So Dimaga is in a position where he can take down an army. I was very much afraid that he would lose the game here, just because he didn't really have a lot of units. Couldn't fight, loses 1 base, but he's probably going to be fine with that. Resources lost are absolutely okay for a Zerg player with such a good economy. But it's really about getting getting his army up to par again. And now with only 77 drones, he's at a much better drone count as well. Yeah, he droned up way too heavily there. And as I said earlier, Yoda did him a favor by killing the Harvesters. Because having 95 to nearly 100 drones that he had, that is absolutely insane if you go up against a Terran player that has a very low Harvester count. So Dimaga now suddenly finds himself in a very good spot. A great army that he has a lead of 20 supply. Army supply is also ahead for him. And he is on top of things in a spot where he has the much better income right now because of the extra bases. He lost 1 base, but he's still looking at 4. And he has a very good saturation. Yoda is getting a lot of additional command centers into the game that can, first of all, be used to block the path of his opponent. Maybe even a planetary being built later. Or you just send them over and get those additional bases for the income. But now the air units are being taken out here, and the planetary is already defending everything. But once we have the Broodlords in the game, it's gonna be much more difficult for Yoda to really deal with this. On the other hand, he's already heading straight into a Viking composition, and with the Vikings, Dimaga needs to be careful how many Broodlords he morphs. At this point, he didn't morph any. He's still relying on the rest of his army and only uses the Corruptors to keep those Vikings at bay, and also of course use corruption against the entire army that we have there. The Banshees are also one of the priority targets for him. So he's doing a pretty decent job, and he's once again of course expanding, and as you can see he's expanding all over the map. He's really trying to take the entire map right now, and Dimaga has a very nice position here. The one thing that he's lacking is gas, so he needs a little few more of his Vespene Geysers here to really make sure that he gets a good gas income and that he can keep that up with his mineral income. But we have also now the gold base taken for Yoda. And this is something where Dimaga needs to try to take that out. And this is where Broodlords come into play, because they can just siege up over here and take down everything right there. If you have Broodlords and Corruptors, you can make that work. But for now, we have actually a little bit of a fight going on between Vikings and between Corruptors there. One Banshee goes down, and so far, nice micro that we see here from Dimaga, having a couple of really great shots against those Vikings. And he has currently the better position with his bank and money, so he doesn't have to trade absolutely cost efficiently. And we even see him with upgrades for Enduring Locusts. So Swarm Hosts might be the weapon of choice here. And with even a Spire being started, another one, we will see double upgrades. So he has taken those extra gases, no saturation there just yet, but this is exactly what he needs. And there we go. He doesn't really need the additional minerals. He has 3,000 already. It's all about the gas. It's all about taking the extra gas and just getting those upgrades, getting those tech-heavy units out there, whereas Yoda is just scanning everything. He's just pinging all over the map, getting those scans in, and Dimaga is trying to deny his opponent as many bases as he possibly can. Actually, looking at this, we have even in a Hydralist then build. If he builds a few Hydras and also Broodlords, I think we have seen every single unit that Zergs have in their arsenal being used by Dimaga in this game. At least we're close. We didn't see Infestors yet, but we might later on in the game. Vipers are, of course, also pretty decent, but actually, as I said, 1 or 2 Broodlords would go a long way to just put some pressure on the space over here. But Dimaga is moving in right now, wants to take this. Another planetary is being built, the siege tanks are being taken out, but we have a lot of Vikings here. And do the Corruptors, is it really in a spot where they can take them out? I do not think so, with the support of the Thors here at the bottom. And Dimaga is losing a lot of his supply. He has 2,000 gas now and can immediately just max out if he wants to, but he is not trading very cost efficiently here. He lost 22,000 resources against 15,000, and that was definitely not a good trade for him. That was very risky what he did there, throwing away the army like this, and it leaves him a little bit vulnerable. He has the lava count, if I'm not mistaken. He has 27, so he's going into 26 drones. What the hell are you doing, Dimaga? I guess he's probably crawling up now, because that doesn't make a lot of sense. He cannot... Like, if he builds spines and spores, that's okay, but 94 harvesters, you do not need 94 harvesters if you have 4,000 minerals. He built 12 Ultralisks and is still at 700 minerals. There is no need for him to saturate all of these bases, and it's very dangerous because you limit your maximum army supply. There, okay, there we go. There go the Spore Crawlers. He's building more and more of those. That makes a lot more sense. 9 Spore Crawlers, 10. Going down to 84 Harvesters again. So, oh, he's going to 210 supply, okay. So, looking at the army supply, it's 116 against 91. But if Yoda maxes out here, he will have the lead in army supply. So, still tricky. It's still tricky. It's not like he's opening himself up too much, but have you seen how those SCVs were just sacrificed by Yoda? He's trying to keep the harvester count low now. He wants to keep a low harvester count so that he has the better army. And he's down to 55. That is 30 supply surplus for Dimaga in harvesters now. And that's 30 potential army supply that's gonna be missing later. A lot of Ultralisks are being used here, and Ultralisks will have a tough time to really move in against all those planetaries. As soon as they get close enough to the siege tanks, it's going to be a bit of a different story. At least if the Vipers, do we still have Vipers? I do not think that we have Vipers there. Vipers would be amazing for Blinding Clouds right now. We have 3 Vipers. Okay, he has 3 Vipers left, and if he gets Blinding Clouds off against these positions, one here, maybe another one over there, that would be absolutely incredible. Then he could shut this down absolutely easily. Vipers, there's one. Where are the other Vipers? Actually not sure where they are, but there are the scans. Yoda is still waiting for his opponent to attack into this, and we have a lot of Vikings here. But that also means that the Vikings can't help out with the ground battle. It kills all of the Corruptors, and it will kill all of the Vipers too, if they are not careful, but it helps him against his opponents. Yeah, it just soaks up a lot of supply. So that's gonna be a huge factor in the next game. Still a lot of drones here for Dimaga. He's once again up at 3,000, 4,000, but he needs to somehow really win this battle, and I like the idea of having a few Broodlords. I really still like an air composition. We have now even a fusion core being built for Yoda. He wants to go into this air battle. Here come those blinding clouds that I was talking about. Great blinding clouds. Absolutely amazing. And now it's it's time for the Ultralisk. Ultras moving in. Queens going straight for the transfuse. The Vikings trying to help out as well. But Dimaga is once again getting rolled here. He is losing so much in these fights. Oh, damn. That is brutal. 33,000 resources lost against 22,000. 46 Mutalisks. Dimaga decides it's time for a massive amount of air units. And he has +3 attack lined up. In terms of armor, he has +2. So he's on +2/+2. And goes for a massive amount of Mutalisks, and he should probably just shut this down immediately. Try to shut down the income. He knows that he has an incredible income, a much better income than his opponent. So if he kills that gold base here, and he should be able to do that quite easily, then he can just move forward and starve his opponent. That would be a nice move here. Ultralisk, I'm not a fan, we just saw why, but the blinding clouds were amazing and that helped him a lot in the last battle. More Thors are being built. Dimaga would really be well advised to use that bit of a time that he has, but it seems like he wants to kill the big chunk of the army here. And he's moving in right now, trying to blinding cloud, and whoa, this is gonna be quite the battle. Yoda is losing most of his air units already, and that's the GG, as Yoda is completely blindsided, did not expect that. There are not enough Thors, not enough damage against this. Most of the Ravens were out of energy, there were no additional point defense drones anymore, and with only siege tanks on the ground, the Mutalisk switch for the win took down Yoda, and Dimaga takes a 1-0 lead against the Korean.